And good evening, everyone. ESS proudly presents the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. And yes, there are four of us tonight. Introducing former coach of Brusham Wire, Randy Todd. Welcome aboard, Coach.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. It's another boring week went by, and we're gonna start doing these weekend, I should say, except it was Easter, and unfortunately, it's not like an Easter like we usually have. But we want to welcome everybody to the broadcast tonight. We have a full slate of guests coming up here this week. We'll let you know more about that as time goes on. Now I can hear myself talk. So without further ado, Joey Riom, it's all yours, buddy.
Randy, why don't you just come over here and we'll do it from here?
Yeah.
It feels like Randy and I are 800 miles apart. He literally is probably just a little chip shot from where I'm sitting. But that's how bad it's been over this last month. We have to talk. This is the way him and I have to talk. Text, wave to each other in the yard. This stinks, but at least we're together tonight. And, I kind of wanted to get Randy on first because I think, Randy, did we interview you when we did this 6-7 years ago? Did we ever? I think we did, didn't we?
We did. We were at the
Riverview.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, I'm shaking my head because I might have had a couple too many rumplements that night and probably don't remember. So,
well, obviously, one of the reasons I wanted to have him back on was because things have changed and a lot of changes in the last 6-7 years. But when we interviewed him last time, him and I coached against each other. And now this year, he was with me, helping us out at St. Lawrence Central, not just with my program, but obviously Randy lives in our school district, and he's now jumped in with our youth girls. His daughters are to that age, and they're getting the experience of a varsity basketball coach. So, Randy, I guess where I want to start with you with questions from me. I'm kind of hoping that Pete and Dave will have some questions about our season together. But how was it coaching your own daughter this year, and in coaching probably for the first time that age level? How was that an experience for you? How's that going to help you going forward with whatever levels that you decide to coach?
Yeah, it was new. Well, brand new and way different. It was amazing how much I would say things because they were in my head like normally, and then I would realize that I would get that deer in the headlights look from the girls, and they had no idea what I was saying because it was too complicated and it was brand new or something. So it took me back to basics, which as varsity coaches, we sometimes get lost in X's and O's and plans and all this other more complicated stuff, when lots of times we just need to go back to basics. And coaching my daughter was, I don't know, Joey, I don't know how you did it for years, because I remember in a timeout, I remember looking at the bench. I'm like, holy cow. I went like that, and I'm sure people could see me, but it was just a spitting image of myself, and she's only in 4th grade. I'm like, oh man. And then a little teary-eyed. I'm like, wow, how'd Joey do this? And Coach Boye did it for years at Chateauguay, and I gained more and more respect for you guys who were able to coach your own kids for that long, because it was different.
It definitely is different. And Toby and I had him all the way through, right through to the end of his career, obviously, and him and I would talk back and forth. Now, we've all seen those dad-coach relationships, or coach-son relationships, coach-daughter relationships that were fine, but there's also those that they're combustible sometimes. And Toby was one for me. But Toby also wasn't a girl. And I know coaching girls, and I've heard the stories. Just coach girls the same way you coach boys. I've watched enough girls practices over the years being the AD, and I'm like, I don't think I could coach them the same way that I coach boys. I certainly would have to tone down the level of my voice and the language that comes out of it, probably. But how did you find that? Because now you're coaching girls here all of a sudden too.
Yeah, it was a bit of a transition. I think at that age level, I mean, they're only 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, so they're young still, and I guess for lack of better thinking, they haven't got to the puberty level yet, and all the other issues that start to come along as they get older. It's the same thing with boys; those issues come along also, but it was a lot like coaching younger boys too. Like I didn't see a ton of difference at the level. My voice, you're right in saying that, Joe. My voice was a key thing because, I mean, just having daughters anyway, my daughter has never heard me raise my voice until they heard me coaching. So it was a shock to them. They were in the crowd. They're like, "Who's that?" And it was me. So definitely I thought more about my tone, and I thought more about being short and simple and detailed, with a good tone. And then, they're people. Like they're young people, but they're people. And it goes back to getting to know them on a personal level and know who you can say what to and how you have to handle different situations with each player. And I mean, that's a great thing. That's why we coach, is to get to know them.
And I couldn't agree more. And I just got one more thing. I'll hand it back over to Pete and Dave here, but I truly felt that I became a better coach because of coaching at the youth level, because exactly those same things that you were just talking about. You have to keep it simple. You have to scale it back. You got to be precise in the amount of time that you have to work with. In youth basketball, here we're 2 days a week, 3 if we're lucky, for an hour and a half. And so you gotta work on the fundamentals. You work on the basics. You teach them how to play. Well, you know what? You need varsity age kids to do those same things as well. And that was part of the stuff that I got better as a coach. I don't think there was any coincidence that we started winning when I started coaching at the youth level and wasn't just coaching varsity. So I think it does matter. And I know Pete and Dave have coached at that level as well, and they probably can speak the same.
Well, I can really, I got stories that would scare you, but I started 3rd and 4th grade and stayed mostly with 5th and 6th grade girls and boys on traveling groups. And my oldest daughter, was one of my players. We didn't get into too many discussions courtside, but the rides home and the chats when you get at home were totally different. I remember what my father used to do after games, and I did the same thing, unfortunately. But you're right, when you're doing those lower levels, and we've all, I don't know, I moved up. I did 5th and 6th for the longest time. Then I moved to modified, and then I did varsity assistant with Joe Binion. And then I went to JV when Sean Martin moved up to varsity. I was a JV coach. And then when you are with those kids, and you're right, Coach, it seems like, well, 2 things. I agree with Joey 100%, is that we sometimes have to go back to basics. And on the other hand, shouldn't these kids, when they get to that level, already know some of the stuff that we're talking about? And you find out that they really don't. And it's almost like you have to bring them back to basics again. But doing a varsity and JV game, and then Saturday you're back in the gym with your 5th and 6th grade team. Yeah, you got to take it down a notch, and sometimes it's not. And the fire is still in the belly for the coaches. But it's a different way of coaching at that level. You guys are right. There's things that are said in a locker room at halftime and also at timeouts on the sidelines that we can't do at the small level. So I miss more of the little kid basketball, to be honest with you, than the JV and varsity. I loved it when they came in. I loved how much fire and energy they had. I didn't have that a lot sometimes when you have kids coming in from the ninth period that had a bad day. I coached girls basketball for the longest time. My biggest problem was they just broke up with their boyfriend in the ninth period, or they had a bad day, and it's like as a coach, and you guys know this well. I don't want keep that at the door. We're here to run practice, and sometimes you got to separate yourself. That's the biggest thing I think I felt. So I know exactly what you're going through, Coach Todd. I really do. And Dave, I'm sure can to elaborate a little bit on that too. So we've all gone through the trenches.
Yeah, I don't have nearly the coaching experience and time that you guys have, but I'm married to a coach who coached volleyball at the junior Olympic level, but started out, like you said, with the smaller kids playing volleyball, and her daughter was one of her players through the years. She kind of moved up with her, but when she got to the higher levels of in the junior Olympics, she found that she had to stop coaching her daughter, just because I think she would focus more on every detail of her daughter's play, and it was a detriment to the overall team. But in talking to her about coaching and stuff, she, same thing. She really enjoyed coaching the younger kids, when they're learning and they're absorbing all the knowledge. And, you can really pick out the ones that are really interested in learning the sport, whichever sport it happens to be. And, fortunately, like I said, her daughter was one of them. Being a 6'1" left-hander, didn't hurt as far as her moving along in her volleyball career. But yeah, I think you all hit the nail on the head about talking about going back to fundamentals and back to basics.
So I got another question, Coach Todd. Now that you've gone to the girls' side, do you plan to stay on the girls' side and move your way up now, or do you miss the guy thing? The boys' teams.
That's a great question. I don't really have a plan right now, Pete. It is what it is. I'm open to what Joey needs. I'm open to what my daughters would like. I know my youngest daughter wants me to coach her in house league, so I'll be doing that also, in addition to whatever else I choose and Joey needs. But I truly enjoyed still coaching the boys when I went and helped Coach Riom, and I think that's where I'm meant to be, because, like Dave said a lot, I really enjoyed coaching the younger kids. You could see them improve from night to night, where with older kids, you don't really see them learn and improve, even when you have them. Like, it takes months to sometimes see that improvement at the older levels, where with younger levels, it's like the next night they come back and all of a sudden they can make a left-handed layup when before they couldn't even get the ball above their head, or and it's quick, and that's definite enjoyment in coaching. But saying that, also, like Dave said, I, like his wife, focused on his daughters a lot. I kept in the back of my head, I focused on Stella a lot during it, but I had to keep reminding myself, I got to look other places. I got to coach other, and that might have actually been a bit detrimental to Stella, because Stella's my daughter. Because I was purposely focusing on others because I didn't want, her coach is a dad and she's getting more attention, all that stuff. So I don't want that starting out.
No, and that's definitely a fine line to walk there, because it's almost is almost like you can't do it right no matter what you do. I mean, because like you said, if you're trying to really help your daughter, improve and play, then oh well, he's helping, he's doing that for his daughter, but what about the rest of the team? And then if you go the other direction, like you said, if you're focusing on the team, then you're kind of shortchanging your own kid, and that's a tough one. It really is. I mean, coaches that coach their own kids, I my hat's off to you all, because that's a really hard thing to do
Any
at any level.
any so I'll bounce it back to Joey quick. Joey, ever have any after game chats with Toby that probably didn't go well? I mean, that happens, and it happened with my daughter. So
Hell, with Toby, it happened pregame. It's a tough one for me because number one, I love my kid more than anything in the world, and I'm proud of him. But I also felt that he got the dad coach that I wanted to make sure there was no doubt in anybody's mind that he wasn't being played the favorite. And he might have it might have been harder for him in that regard, in that respect. Because I'm like, you're going to have to be here because you've earned it. You're not going to be here because I'm your dad. It was something that's always was in the back of my mind. Because number one, I didn't want people thinking I took over this program because of my son. He started in kindergarten the year I became the varsity coach. Well, how was I to know 9 years later I'd still be here when he got to JV level? So I really was not the varsity coach because I had a son. He just happened to come along. But I just wanted to make sure that he got there the right way. And it probably was harder for me. I mean, he got left behind a couple of times, away from Matthew Berg and Colby Perkins, his two best buddies, and two kids that I moved along a little bit quicker than Toby. So him and I had our battles, but I know we're better off for it now. And I totally understand anybody that talks about coaching your kid. I have great regard for, and will listen. And I've heard positives, never had an issue story. And I've heard negatives. Oh, it was the hardest thing in my life. I'd like to think that Toby and I fell somewhere in the middle of that. Because for as much, there were nights where it was tough, but there was nights where it was awesome too. To see your kid score 30 points in a ball game, and to be on the sidelines and the coach of that is pretty cool. To watch him win a Class C championship. And Randy knows he was there for Toby's last game. And even though that was a sad moment, it was a proud moment too, because of how Toby handled himself after that tough loss. So we've seen it all, and I'd go back and do it in a heartbeat. I'd coach him again. I know that.
a couple questions for Coach Todd, I guess. A lot of years spent at Bresham Ware, Coach, and a lot of ups and downs as far as teams. I got to ask you, when teams came in the door, who was the toughest team that you had to play against? Because there's been a lot of separation in this division for years when teams go from C to D and D to C, and they have to play up like Joey has a couple of years. But when it comes playoff time, who was your opponent that you knew you had to gear up for?
Yeah, so in the East, especially when St. Lawrence Central has been in the Central for a while now, the battle's always Chateauguay and Madrid and us, Brusham Wyra. And we knew it. We try to treat every game the same, but, we all circle those games on the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And we know they're coming. And we try not to talk about them as being more than just another game, but we all know in the back of our heads that that's not the case. And then playoff time, we've been lucky enough to have good teams that compete in Class C, and other years not even sniff anything. So when you add St. Lawrence Central to the mix with Madrid and us, Class C has been a battlefield for years, pretty much since Joey and I have been coaching. And there's a couple of years Potsdam was involved, Canton was involved in Class C. So I just think I've been fortunate to have teams just to be able to compete both in Class C and the East Division.
I know for years, just doing some of your games when I was up there in Section 10, everybody that came into Brushton knew it was going to be a battle royale. And you had good fans behind you too. And I'll tell you what, it was just as the fans up in the crowd were just as, ooh, they were into it. I'll tell you, they were into it. But I wanted to bring up another aspect that I love doing every year when you guys were up, when you were with Brushton, was the coaches versus cancer. And if you guys can elaborate on that a little bit more, I know we loved doing it when I was up there. So if you could elaborate on that a little bit more, I'm sure everybody would appreciate it.
Well, I've said this many times when we host and I take the microphone to thank everybody, but I really think that 20, 30 years from now, Coach Todd and I will look back upon creating Coaches versus Cancer for Brushton and St. Lawrence Central as probably one of our greatest achievements. I'm proud of that. I know he is too. All the money that we raise, we've after a couple of years, we started realizing, why are we sending a check to the American Cancer Society, which is fine, or Coaches versus Cancer, which is fine. But we were like, boy, it would really be nice to help somebody here. And so that's what we started doing. And I know Coach Todd, he's handed his check or two here or there to people that needed it in the Brushton community. I did it here, and it's one of the most rewarding things in the world, just to hand over a check for $200 here. Here's some gas money, something to help you with the driving back and forth for your treatments or whatever. Use it for whatever that they needed. That's pretty rewarding. And to think that we just completed the 10th year of that, and now it's become such a tradition that even though Coach Todd's not at Brushton anymore, we kept it going this year, and I don't see a reason as to why we're going to stop. It's our turn to host it next year. And the kids look forward to it. And so as much as I want Randy to be on the sidelines coaching against me in this, I'm going to try to keep it going, just because I feel it would be selfish not to allow the kids love it. They look forward to that day every year. Now it's become a tradition. Coach Todd bought a cup for us. And the winner of the most games that day gets to keep the cup. So that's kind of cool. It's more than that, though. It's about helping people out, and that's something that Coach Todd and I take great respect and think highly of. Is to do that, is to help other people out, and that's what that whole day is. And it's not just him and I. I don't want to make it sound like him and I are the only ones that make this thing work. We have tons of help. The people that he got in Brushton, the people that I get over here at St. Lawrence Central, we have tons of help with all of our teams and all the people. But it was our idea. I always wanted to do that. I'm like, well, I've loved it. We kind of made it a basketball festival where every level was playing. And when we first started, we had our youth kids playing. We had like 8 games on that day with 5th and 6th grade girls and boys. So we do accomplish the 6 now every year, modified JV and varsity, and it's just a great day. And the communities look forward to it now. It's a given that it's going to happen. So.
Coach
And just
Todd?
add on a couple things. Yeah, it's amazing. Like looking back now, getting older, just sitting around one night, Joey and I talking. We don't need to specify where or what we were doing, but
I think I've been there.
I don't think. Yeah,
Church.
I think so.
We were at church.
Yeah, we're at church.
That's
Yeah.
right. But looking back, I don't know if Joey or I could have imagined first of all, being as successful as it has been for 10 years and being able to help the communities we work and live in, it's been phenomenal. And thinking back to that night 10 or 11 years ago, we came up with this idea, which I don't know, no one else was doing it. It was kind of crazy. And it just makes me proud to look back, as well as Coach Riom, to just see what we've done for our communities. And it's always a compliment to be copied, I guess, and to see other communities doing similar things around our section now just reinforces that, hey, not all of our ideas are completely ridiculous.
Well, I know a lot of brain cells are trying to go into scheduling that stuff. I know that. That's all I'll say about that. Anyway, a lot of players you've seen a lot of players in your varsity time at Bresham-Wera, so I'm going to ask you a loaded question. Who's the best all-around player you've seen come out of Bresham-Wera in your tenure? That's a loaded
That's
question.
the toughest question. That is the toughest question Pete's ever asked.
Gotta ask it.
Thank God he didn't ask
You can
me.
name a couple.
There's.
Oh, make sure we send this out to all his former players.
That's right.
Gotta ask.
There's it's a great question. It's your job. It's your job. See, my job is to not have a bad answer here. So let's see.
Sorry to
there's
put
just
you
so
on the
many.
spot, Coach.
No. Like I've said, I've been blessed to be able to coach some guys that just fit the high school level very well. I mean, I've coached 4,000-point scorers, I think. And it's not just about scoring. I've coached other guys who may have scored 100 points in a career that I think are just as valuable, if not more. So it would be completely unfair of me to pick one guy out. But those 1,000-point scores will always be memorable in my heart. Speaking about Coaches vs. Cancer, one of them happened on a Coaches vs. Cancer day. So Alex Burnett, he was all around awesome. Josh Seavey's all around awesome. Justin Poyer, BJ Fairchild, Colby McCarthy. I can keep going. And then, saying all this, Pete, one of the best teams probably one of the best teams in Russian history didn't have any of those guys on it. And it was the year after Josh Seavey graduated.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll save it then. But, we all know that one guy or two guys don't make anything happen on a basketball floor. I mean, it's nice to have those guys, but it takes from guy number one down to guy number however many are on the team, 12, 15, 9, some years. And that's what I took pride in, is trying to get everybody to their potential. And if they got to their potential, whether they scored 1,000 points or whether they only got in the game for their senior game, that was their potential. They're filling it. That's what my goal was.
All right. So
I've avoided a couple of your questions.
Well, you can't avoid this one. What's the best team you ever had? I mean, year-wise, do you remember?
Oh, there's another. It's a tie, Pete.
I know.
It's a tie.
That's why we ask these questions. I got to put you on the spot somehow.
So, first of all, let me say I've loved every single one of my teams. Success is different every year. Some years we just don't have talent, but success is measured different ways, and we've all been successful as teams. If we're talking wins and losses, 2010 and 11 was a phenomenal year for Bresham-Wera. We went to the Elite Eight. We won a state game finally. Um, we were tied going in the fourth quarter to go to the Final Four. Bad coaching, I guess, didn't get us there, but that's all right. So that was a great team. Then Taylor Tallman and Alex Burnett's senior season. Brian Aubrey was a senior also. Those guys also won a state game. We finally beat Section 2, which was a checkbox that I always had because Joey would know that we aren't always the most successful against Section 2 teams in Class C. So it was a checkbox that we finally checked off that year. That was 2016-ish. Again, a game away from the Final Four. I never got to check that box off yet. But
I'm well
still
aware of Section 2, to be honest with you. That's what we do. I'm down here now. So I'm well aware of Section 2 titles and teams down here. Different kind of ball than it is up there. And
I'd be remiss if I didn't, Pete, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yep, no.
I'd be remiss in not mentioning the older teams I had because I'm getting older, so my memory is more of what happened yesterday than 12 years ago. But the team with Justin Poyer and BJ on it, 2,000-point scorers on the floor at the same time. That team was rather successful too and ran in a juggernaut from Section 2. And the next year, I think it might have been the most wins we had in the season. So, again, I've been so lucky to have some players that allowed us to be successful wins and loss-wise.
Yeah, and Pete, you mentioned Section 2, and Randy and I have talked about this, and that's part of the reason, Pete, you see us, and I'm glad that you do it down in Lake George every year, because I took it upon myself to say we have to figure out how to beat Section 2 to get to the state Final Four. During my run, it was Lake George all the time, and so that's why I got in their tournament, and we'll be back down this year, which I'm looking forward to. They supply the cream of the crop, and I don't know what would have happened this year with Coach Jones and Matter Bonington beating Mariah, who was the number one team in the state. This was one of the weird years where Section 2 didn't have the number one team in the state.
No.
And in fact, Lake George had made it through again, and they were the fourth seed.
They came with a surprising win. Yeah, and then they shut the season down. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So it would have been Lake George versus Battered Waddington, and to think that Coach Todd and myself were 7 minutes away from being in that same Mariah game that Coach Jones and Battered Waddington ended up winning. Coach Todd being with us this year, he talks about, there's some teams that don't have 1,000-point scorers, and they do things that surprise the heck out of you. Well, I think when it became kind of obvious that Randy was going to have the opportunity to help me out this year, I just told him after my first week of practice with this group that I had, and this was my first year without Toby and that great group of kids that I had for the last 3-4 years. I'm like, boy, I wouldn't want to play us. We can't score. We're going to have a hard time scoring, but we play good defense. And, to think that we got as far as we did really in games where we had to keep it about 50 points, they really did play good defense. And having Randy along really helped. And I guess what I'm leading into, because this is supposed to be about you, Randy, and not me, but what was it like after being a 13-year head coach at the varsity level against St. Lawrence Central, and now you're stepping over and helping out with kids that you've coached against, with a coach that you've coached against?
Yeah, and you say I have loaded questions. Huh.
Yeah. Well, this is more of his job interview for next year right here. So.
It was hard at first. And Joe, I think it was hard. Just because I didn't know how I'd be accepted by the players. I know you were on board. Although there might have been some weirdness in the beginning too. but after the first day I was there, and you know, we were very veteran laden this year with all 9 seniors or whatever we had,
Yeah.
and they opened their arms like I've been a Larry for years, which was awesome, and it says a lot of. Yeah, I know it's not about you, Joe, but it sometimes is. That it says a lot about you and your program. You were able to teach these guys that probably in one of the hardest moments of your life and in St. Lawrence Central basketball life, that that opposing coach could come back the next year and be a friend and a assistant coach. It just says a lot about you and what you've built here. I'm proud to be a part of it. So thank you for that. And like I said, as the year got on, Pete, it was nice not having the varsity pressure. I don't want to make it seem like, so Joey made it so I could come whenever I want, contribute whatever I want, say almost whatever I want, and it was nice to have freedom and not have to, you know, with commitments I had with my daughters and my family, not to have to always be there. I did miss the pressure of head coaching in games. I love that. I think I do some of my best work under pressure, so I missed that. But I think it was the right time for me to not have that commitment all the time, and we'll see what happens moving forward.
I will say one thing. I will say one thing about the St. Lawrence community. Me being an outsider coming in down there from Salmon River, I was treated. I mean, I was taken in with open arms. I was treated like gold by that community from day one. I consider it my second home. I really do. I really like that community. So I know exactly where you're coming from the Salmon River side and going over to St. Lawrence. And I've had nothing but praise for that St. Lawrence community down there at all. I mean, it's a great place. It really is. Tight-knit community.
Well, we appreciate that, Pete, and Randy too. And yeah, we do. You know, just speaking not as the athletic director, but as a coach of boys basketball at St. Lawrence Central, I take great pride in that. And it's a big deal to me about how my kids act, about how our families act, how our fans act. We've tried to make it a family program. You know, and I'm proud of that. It's tough. It was tough. It's not. You know, we're used to things now. You know, we're a hockey town here, and I say that without any sort of animosity at all. We know that Salmon River's in the same boat. Okay,
Yep.
So you know, to be able to take the kids that we have when we're splitting our athletes up here at a small school, I can't tell you how proud I was of those years when both the hockey team and the boys basketball team went to states. That's unheard of to send two schools C-size to states in the same season. So we take a lot of pride in the fact that we've made a family program. I haven't had any major issues in a long time. And that speaks to my families. It speaks to our youth program. They allow us to do things the way I see fit. And we have kids now that come back and help. And Randy's right. The way my kids opened their arms up to him just impressed the hell out of me. They didn't have to do that. And if they didn't, it was going to be hard for me to be mad at him. I would have got it. He ripped our hearts out last year. And I shouldn't say he, I mean, Brushton ripped our hearts out last year. And if you were to ask me, Pete, my best team, that was my best team. They just didn't win it. And those happen. But to
You're
think
talking
that
about
they allowed
what season are you talking about, Joe? Not this past.
Not this past year, but the two years ago, my class of 2019 season.
Yeah, and
that was my best team.
That's the team you came down to a one shot at the buzzer to beating the undefeated state champions Lake George at their tournament that year.
Yeah, and we had a legit. We knew that day we've got a shot, but I also knew because of our schedule there was no way we were going to get the 1 seed. because Matter Waddington or Randy was going to get the 1 seed because they just, they have an easier schedule than we do in the Central. And there's no way we were going to get that. So I knew that we were going to face either one of them in the 2-3 game. Luckily, we got home court, but it turned out that it didn't matter. But those things happen. I've seen good teams get beat before, and it happened. But that speaks to Randy and how great of a coach that he is. And I had told, and look, our kids they were kind of shocked by the moment, but they knew that was possible because we had beaten that group of kids every time we played them at every level, but every year they were getting closer and closer to us, and you could sense it coming. They just happened to get us that night. But for Randy, I'll tell you what, having Randy on the sidelines with me is an eye opener for me. Great detail that he goes into studying film. He showed the kids all about that in our film sessions. I think he would admit he didn't sit on the sideline when we got brushed and back, and I don't blame him one bit when we got him back in the semifinal game this year. I would say our best 2 game plans that I've ever been involved in were the last 2 games we played in this year, and Randy had a hand in both of those. So I don't think it's any coincidence. I love game planning. He brought it to a different level for me. These coaches that just show up and wing it, I don't know how they do it. I love game planning, and I thought we had 2 of the best game plans ever for our win over Brushton. And then, we had a 7-point lead in the 4th quarter against Matter Waddington and just didn't score again. But we had a great game plan in that. We committed to it, and we fought and just couldn't score when we needed to score at the end. But that's a lot to do with Randy. If he's back with me next year, we go from being unbelievably senior laden to unbelievably young. We are literally starting over next year. So, it's a new project for him and I, if he happens to be with us. And if he isn't, I totally don't blame him because he is a varsity coach and he should be a varsity coach somewhere.
So, Coach Todd, so let's stop talking about basketball for 2 seconds here. I heard you're one hell of a golfer. Have you been at it all this year, and are you looking forward to going on the links?
Well, I'm going to steal a quote from Joey. Again, it's about him.
Always comes back to Joey.
That's right. He'll always say when he hits a good shot, I used to be able to play. I used to be able to play. Something along those lines. And I always look at him and I say, you still can play. You just don't play enough. But I used to be able to play. I can still hit it a long way. I don't practice ever, so that's where strokes are gained. But it's really just a joy for me to play. I went with the family a couple weekends ago, like March 28th, which is amazing that we were out golfing at that time. But I went and played 4 holes with the daughters walking, with the wife walking by. It was great, and that was the only time I was out, and now they've closed everything down, and
Yeah.
who knows when we get back out there. I am missing it. I have an itch. We just got to be patient, I guess.
Yeah, I think all 4 of us have that itch, to be honest with you. Between the Yankee Classic games, and of course was it yesterday they played the 2019 Masters.
Yeah.
TV.
Last year's.
I had to watch that too. So
that felt to me like Tiger won again. It still gave me chills. It felt like he won again yesterday. So.
Yep.
And you want to talk about the itch? How bad is the itch when you got to stand there at a golf course every day?
Oh.
Yeah.
That's what I work at the golf course, and I just stand there and look at the golf course and wonder when are we going to be able to get back out and play.
Randy, Dave is groundskeeper and bartender at Inlet, which is just.
I know. I watched the show last week and heard you guys talking about it.
Yeah.
So, Dave, do you still get to take care of the course right now?
Yeah. We're considered essential workers, taking care of the course. So that's one good thing.
That is a great thing.
And if I happen to get out on the a couple of holes here and there and hit a ball, not today, but
fringe benefit.
yeah.
Like I said, Randy, I think I said in that other show that all I cared about was greens and a 19th hole. Randy just 19th hole. Greens could be dirt.
19th hole.
19th hole. He'll show up.
Yeah, well, I'll still make some putts on dirt. We're all right.
Yeah, see.
Or cork greens, yeah, whatever. Mhm.
I know we only got a few more minutes, but a lot of people probably wouldn't know that's how Randy and I met was through the game of golf, and we keep that connection. We play in a few scrambles every year, and obviously try to play as much as we can, not as much as we used to, but it was funny, Randy. I'm down cellar right now, and I'm gutting. Who isn't? I'm going through things, and I found. Remember, St. Lawrence used to put out a newsletter, and you're on the cover of one, a picture of you and Pete Wilson. You're holding the flag when you were the number one man, and that was the first year I qualified for the 6-man team in 2001 at St. Lawrence. I had to go out against Bill Lemieux, Chris Wells, and I think Petey Wilson in a 4-man playoff for one spot. And that's really where Randy and I got to know each other. I made that team, and him and I went to Malone and played in the Northern New York 6-man tournament that year. He is the 1-man and me as the 6-man. And we've pretty much been friends ever since, and coaching just happened to get involved somehow, some way. So the game of golf. That's why I try to get my kids' gift every year for me. When they graduate is a gift certificate up to Meadowbrook. People give money. They probably do deserve money, but I always look at it like if you can get golf in your blood, then that's something you can play till you're 90 years old. So,
yep. And don't have to be good at it.
No.
I can speak for that. So,
Yes. I can speak for you too.
Yeah.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
I think that's something we all can all agree on.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think Randy could carry this foursome right here to, I don't know, 400 or 500 maybe for a 18-hole scramble.
I'm ready.
We could go low.
You pack the cooler, Pete, and Dave will drive the cart, and I'll just walk along.
Okay, that's fine with me.
And we'll let Randy play.
That's fine with me. Now, Coach Todd, I appreciate you joining us tonight. I got to wind this down. It was an honor to have you on here. Hopefully we can get you back on again. Hopefully we can get through this virus so we can all go on to living a normal life and meet on the golf course or having a couple toddies somewhere, So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Sorry, Pete. I wanted to thank everybody. This is awesome. You guys getting together again. I just wanted to reach out to all my friends. We were talking about players before, so I haven't been able to get a hold of all of them. So I just wanted on here, if they were watching, to, stay safe, take care of your families, be the quality young men I know you are. We'll get through this. We'll figure it out. And thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Just an update. Tomorrow evening, we're going to have Chris Engel on, and Wednesday night, Russell Bartlett. And we might have a special guest on Friday night. We're working on that as we speak. But for Joy Realm, Dave Bartlett, Pete Goslaw here saying thank you very much, Coach Todd, and signing off on Wise Guys Sports Talk Show.